The US Vice President J.D. Vance has touched down in Switzerland for talks with Iranian officials on implementing the US-Iran interim peace deal. He said they would focus on issues including Lebanon and ending Iran's nuclear program. Iranian negotiators have already arrived in Switzerland. Tehran earlier said it had again closed the Strait of Hormuz in response to Israel's continued strikes on southern Lebanon. The US military denied this, saying the strait was open. On social media, President Trump said there will be no tolls in the Strait of Hormuz, either now or after the 60-day negotiation period set out for further peace talks ends. He also suggests the US could impose its own tolls if a broader deal is not reached between the US and Iran during the negotiation period. Our World News correspondent Joe Inwood reports.
This is Lebanon in the middle of a ceasefire. Clearly, it has not held. The latest village to feel the consequences of that failure was Kanarit. Local authorities say an Israeli airstrike killed 7 people. Qasim shows what he says is a section of the missile that killed his family.
It was my in-laws' house, my wife's 2 brothers, my mother-in-law and her son. There were also 2 babies. One was just 1 month old, the other is 2 months old.
Israel says it was responding to attacks from Hezbollah. The Iranian-backed group say that is a lie. Whatever the truth, Iran's response to the continued fighting was to once again close the Strait of Hormuz, the vital waterway that had only just reopened. Although the US has denied that it's closed, the peace process is clearly in trouble.
The commitments are very clear: an end to the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon. We have honoured our commitments, they have failed. This constitutes a clear violation of the ceasefire memorandum.
That will be the main point this high-level Iranian delegation will want to raise as they arrive in Geneva for talks. Representing the US will be the Vice President, who has recently been critical of Israel's attacks on Lebanon and knows they could jeopardise a deal.
The big problem is that you have somebody will shoot and then somebody will respond, and you kind of have a chicken and egg problem where you just got to stop the siege for long enough to get the ceasefire to hold.
Although that is not yet how it appears on the ground. All sides know that before any of the technical details, whether over nuclear ambitions or sanctions relief, can be discussed, the fighting in Lebanon will need to come to an end. The last few days have shown that is easier said than done. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Charlotte Gallagher is in Jerusalem and explains how the conflict in Lebanon is so key to the success of these talks.
It's one of the key things that's going to be discussed in Switzerland. As you heard Joe saying there, Lucy, we heard that there was a ceasefire on Friday that had been agreed between Hezbollah and Israel. And then within minutes, we heard there had been airstrikes in southern Lebanon. Both sides, Hezbollah and Israel, accusing the other of breaking the ceasefire. We know that about 47 Lebanese people have been killed, and Israel says 4 Israeli soldiers have also been killed inside southern Lebanon. So the clashes have continued, and that's a huge sticking point. That is one of the main points in this peace deal framework, that the clashes inside Lebanon have to stop. And we heard from Iran yesterday. They said they were closing the Strait of Hormuz because those clashes haven't stopped. Now, the United States say the Strait of Hormuz is still open, so it's slightly confusing at this point. But of course, Iran have the power over that stretch of water. And I think they've really realised in this conflict how much power that does hold and how much it can influence the world economy. So that's going to be one of the key points discussed today. And I think we're going into these talks with the US and Iran wanting to prioritise different things. Now, for Iran, of course, they want the fighting inside Lebanon to stop, firstly. They also want their assets unfrozen. They want to be able to sell oil on the open market. They want those sanctions lifted. For the United States, they want a pledge from Iran that they will never make a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran has said they're not enriching uranium to make nuclear weapons. They're enriching uranium for energy, for clean energy, but the United States and many other countries, including Israel, don't believe that. So they're going in with different priorities, but they have 60 days to try and iron out those differences. But yes, firstly, Lebanon and the Strait of Hormuz, the key issues that they're going to want to discuss.
But it does look like these talks are going ahead, because at one point it was a little bit uncertain, wasn't it, whether they would actually go ahead at all?
Yes, both sides said they weren't going at one point, but now we know, as you heard there, the Iranian and the American delegations are inside Switzerland ready for those talks. Of course, Israel not represented at those negotiations, and it's been a difficult situation for the Israeli government, this, because they went into this war with the United States, but they've been pretty much sidelined. They hoped that there would be something in that framework deal about Iran stopping funding Hezbollah. There hasn't been. Benjamin Netanyahu went into that war wanting regime change inside Iran. Well, if anything, Lucy, the Iranian regime is stronger than it was before the war. So people inside Israel are feeling quite vulnerable from this deal and also quite constrained because, of course, their most powerful ally, the United States, wants Israel to stop fighting inside Lebanon because they feel it could really risk that peace deal with Iran.
Charlotte Gallagher for us there in Jerusalem. Well, Abbas Milani is Director of Iranian Studies at Stanford University. He gave me his analysis of where the diplomatic issues are for the US and Iran.
My take is that the more serious problem isn't whether it is right now open or not, but what Iran's real position is, because there are talks in Iran and Iranian media in the last few hours that says Mr. Khamenei, the new alleged supreme leader, has made it very clear that Iran will have monopoly control over the Strait of Hormuz, and it will collect money for it, and it will decide who shall go through and who shall not, and that it is, he says, a non-negotiable. If that is the real position of Iran, I think the issue of its temporary closure is but a beginning of a more serious problem.
And yet we've got President Trump claiming that there may be US tolls that are enforced on the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, I don't know what basis, what legal basis that can have. Even Iran and Oman's claim for trying to maybe get some kind of a service fee is subject to a lot of legal debate. But the United States claiming that it can collect money, I don't know of any basis where that can happen.
And what are your thoughts on the prospects of these talks being successful? We've got this issue, of course, of Lebanon and Iran wanting the fighting to stop in Lebanon. We've got the issue of Netanyahu and his domestic pressures and the influence that has on the situation on Lebanon. What are your thoughts on the prospects for these talks being successful?
My assumption is that in spite of all of this pyrotechnics and verbal jousting, both sides want a deal. Well, I don't think Iran wants a resumption of the war. Certainly Mr. Trump doesn't want it. Iran is in desperate need of economic relief, of sanction relief. They're going to make a hard bargain because domestically in Iran, there is a minority, still a vocal minority, that believes that there should be no negotiation, that Iran has won this war, that it has defeated the US and Israel and should begin to collect the damages. That radical position, I think, accounts for some of these verbal jousting and the threat that was made by one Iranian commander of the IRGC. So my sense is that Mr. Trump also very much wants to have a deal. Iran wants to have a deal, and they both want to declare it as their victory. They both want to say that the other side has made all the concessions and they have made none.
Abbas Milani from Stanford University.